Welcome to Success Your Own Way, a podcast about how real people define and redefine success throughout their careers. Hosted by Tina Schuricht and Yifat Rogers, this show features candid conversations with guests who've made intentional choices, navigated change, and built lives aligned to their values. Their guests share their stories as well as strategies and tactics that help them along the way. Tina's a certified coach and a former corporate leader who supports professionals in making confident, values-driven decisions. Yifat is a consultant with a background in food science and engineering, helping people solve complex problems with a practical, no-nonsense approach. Each episode offers inspiration and actionable insights for anyone rethinking what success looks like in their life and how to get there.
Podcast Success Your Own Way, real stories, real insight. Today we're gonna talk to Tina. So Tina, one of the hosts of the podcast. Tina, I'd love to hear more about your background, about your approach, your coaching. Yes, let's get to know you a little bit. So Tina, who are you? What is your background?
That's a great question, Yifat. It's interesting being on the hot seat after doing some hosting, so it's fun to turn the tables. Well, I am an executive and leadership coach. I've been coaching professionally for the last year and a half, but prior to that, it's been 26 years of corporate experience in the technology, insurance, financial services, healthcare types of markets. I've got a really interesting and meandering background. It includes engineering and marketing and operations. Probably the most formative parts of my background, though, have been in my chief of staff roles, where I've gotten really a front seat to support executives in leading their organizations and making tough decisions. And that's really, really shaped, who I am as a leader.
Yeah. Good. So, what are you passionate about in the business world? So you talked a lot about your experience. What are you passionate about?
Yeah, I left corporate America just a couple of years ago to pursue my coaching business. And so there's a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit that I have, but I am also very keen on helping leaders develop. I've had my share of excellent and amazing leaders out there. And then I've seen some leaders who could really use some support, some coaching, some help developing and being the best leader they can be and developing a really high-performing team. So my passion has turned from leading teams to helping leaders lead their teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So helping leaders lead their teams. You are a coach. We hear about coaches. What is coaching? What does a coach do?
It's a great question. And there may be a variety of answers for it because coaching has really evolved over the last several years and become a lot more popular, mainstream, and a way for companies to invest in their talent. So it's great to see. Everyone's probably familiar with the sports coaches, right? Coaches who, coach basketball teams or baseball teams. And that is a little bit of it. There's a lot of commonality. In fact, I wrote a blog post about the commonality of coaching a fourth grade boys team and being a professional coach. And there's a lot of similarities in terms of building trust and helping to guide and support your coachee, your team. It also really coaching professionally has a lot to do with what I would consider to be leading from behind. So really having this belief in your coachee that they are a whole person with answers, and your job is to be incredibly curious and engaged and let them tell their story and let them have some space to figure it out with you there, supporting, encouraging, and also holding them accountable, which is a huge part of coaching, is to be that accountability partner.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that aspect of coaching and really the asking questions. As a consultant, we don't know all the answers, but we usually know the question to ask.
So true. Yeah, consulting and coaching are super related, I would say.
Yeah. Thanks for that explanation about coaching. I know I'm learning a lot through this podcast. So what are some techniques coaches use to inspire transformative breakthrough in their clients?
Yeah, the basics of coaching is really what I mentioned. It's about asking those powerful questions, not the closed-ended, did you, would you, those sorts of things, but really asking them to think in depth about the situation and the change they're trying to make. It's about being engaged and active listening kind of at the next level, not just hearing and thinking about your next question, but really hearing and being curious about the situation and listening to and looking at the body language of your client to help know where things need to be pushed a little bit harder or questioned a little bit more. We can get real creative too. We can use metaphors. We can use visualization exercises. We can even use, some creative artistic things to try to help the person really get out of their autopilot and their comfort zone and really explore new things and new ways of being and new ways of thinking. The other thing, as I mentioned, it really, like, this is similar to a professional coach or to a sports coach. We're going to celebrate successes and we're going to hold you accountable. And so those are some really, kind of key ways. And I think in general, the backdrop of this is just creating that really non-judgmental, safe, psychologically safe space for the coachee to do the exploration that they need to make the change that they want.
Yeah. Good. So Tina, you're an executive coach. You help leaders. You have been a leader on yourself. What are some characteristics of a strong leader?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this actually over my long corporate career and specifically my leadership experiences, and I've come up with my top 5 favorites. Okay,
love that. I love top 5.
A top 5 favorite list. So my first one is really around emotional intelligence. I think coaching and leading in a technology space, sometimes that emotional intelligence or EQ is a little bit overlooked in favor of the technical expertise, and I think the best leaders can bring both to the table. The second one is around executive presence, which some people may think, well, that's just who I am. I can't improve in that area, but coaches can help. And executive presence is a little bit of an intangible, and I think we know it when we see it, and we know it when we don't. But it's hard to put our fingers on what that is and why we're drawn to some leaders and we're not to others. But executive presence is kind of that secret sauce there. The third one is strategic thinking. I personally have managed many individuals who are great at their day-to-day job, but can't get out of the box and think bigger picture and articulate their ideas in terms of frameworks and trade-offs and things that really help make great decisions. And so that strategic thinking is also an area that I think is important for leaders to develop. Delegation is another one that with my current coaching clients has come up a lot. Even really tenured senior professionals who I frankly had expected would know how to delegate and it would be natural, but they don't. They are either new to the management or they've never been particularly good at delegating. But that's a huge skill, not only to help grow and nurture your teams, but as a leader to find the time to build your strategic thinking and really develop as a leader. And the last one, and this is probably most important, is building trust. Because, and again, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have been in environments where there's been a real lack of trust, and hopefully you've experienced some environments where trust is really the cornerstone of the culture. But if that's not there, it really makes it difficult for people to want to follow you as a leader.
Good. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Tina, you talked about emotional intelligence. I sense a lot of passion there. Why is emotional intelligence crucial, especially for leaders, and how can it be developed?
Yeah, to me, it's critical for a lot of different areas. One being decision making, because I think decisions in some cases can't just be made with the head. They have to be made with the heart, and they have to be shared in a way where people are going to receive that message and understand what's happening and why. The relationship element is obviously important, that connection. We went through a period of time with COVID where we couldn't be in the office and we couldn't connect with other people. And I think our society took a little bit of a toll on that. And getting back to using emotions and connecting with others, regardless of what level you are, or what industry you're in, or what role you play, is really important. It can help your culture. It can also help your conflict resolution if you can address hard conversations in a really supportive type of way, in a curious way. That's emotional intelligence is the engine of that, of being able to address those conflicts. It can be motivating and inspiring to your organization, and ultimately it's going to help you adapt to situations. If you understand the emotions of yourself and of those you're working with, it will allow you to adapt to the situation and get the resolution and strong decisions that you need to make. So you can improve it. So that might
good news.
That's good. That's great news. I think, there may be some leaders who think I am who I am and I'm good and I don't need to develop. But I would argue that most leaders, most people, human beings, could always develop in becoming more emotionally intelligent. And we call that EQ, as I mentioned. So there's some things that you can do. First of all, it's practicing your self-awareness. Are you noticing how you show up? Are you noticing how you respond to situations? Are you just aware of how you're showing up? Are you getting that feedback? That's the other thing, like really seeking feedback from other people so that you do have that heightened self-awareness. Bring the empathy to the conversation. Just because you're showing empathy to someone doesn't mean you 100% agree with them. Heck no. It probably does. It probably means you don't agree with them, but you can relate to their situation, and that really opens the door for conversation. I think listening to and watching for cues, body motions, body gestures, the tone of voice, where the eyes go. If you pick up on those cues, you can understand what that person needs to hear from you. Do they need someone to be tough with them? Do they need someone who can be just a great listener and act as a coach? What do they need? And your facial features and expressions really do show that, I think. And lastly, it's really about continuing to have that growth mindset and be a lifelong learner. Like, as I mentioned, I think we can all continue to grow in emotional intelligence, and being open to that is half the battle sometimes.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Tina, one of the characteristics that you talked about in strong leadership is executive presence. How can coaching help individuals embody it authentically? Yes.
Well, in executive presence, I didn't really spend time defining it, but it really is about how you show up. And it can be everything from your appearance to your confidence to your credibility to how you communicate. I mean, all of that is really important, and from an executive presence perspective. And so to me, it's all of that: confidence, clarity, composure, credibility, all the C's, charisma, right? Charisma, that's kind of the intangible part of this. Empathy and really showing your visionary thinking, showing your understanding of the big picture, and being a little bit inspiring. I think that to me is defining of executive presence. Although you may all have different definitions of it, that's how I would define it. Coaches can help you. I mean, that's the bottom line. Even with your appearance, your image, there are people out there, image consultants, that can help you if you're like, I don't know how to dress. I don't know how to, look the part that I'm trying to play. But that does end up being important. Also, things around helping you create the clarity of purpose and alignment with your values. We haven't talked a lot about that today, but that's really the cornerstone of coaching, is ensuring that people understand what their values are and how they're living them. And building your confidence by really, I don't know, some folks like the fake it till you make it. I'm a fan. I think it's like, if you believe it, it will become more natural for you. And I think that's another way coaches can help, is by helping you understand how to fake it and practicing that skill set and being accountable with it. Communication's another one. Coaching is all about communication. So even in the process of coaching, communication gets developed and created. And your coachee may just want to coach on that, situations where they're coming up a little short on the comms. whether it's how they're expressing their thoughts, how they're preparing, whether it's written or verbal. All of those skills can really impact that executive presence. And then I guess the last thing with all of this said, executive presence isn't about being someone you're not. It's about being the best version of you that you can possibly be. So the element of authenticity is super, super important, because yes, you can fake it till you make it in action, but if it fundamentally doesn't align with your values or who you are authentically, it won't come across as being credible. So
yeah, I agree. The authenticity is important, and when I'll introduce myself, I'll talk a lot about kind of bringing your authentic self, but that resonates with me.
Good.
A lot. Leaders need the ability to think strategically and make high impact decisions. How can coaching help refine their ability to do just that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, it's another one that I think you may not think coaches can help with, but they really can by asking those, inquiring questions. So first of all, it is about this self-awareness, which I've mentioned. I'm beating the drum on self-awareness and EQ because I do think that that's foundational to really developing and growing as a leader overall. Coaches can help with analytical thinking, which is sometimes lacking. Critical thinking is sometimes lacking. If you're used to being a tactician and, doing your job in your box and not thinking outside of it, sometimes not only having the data, but being able to interpret and understand it and then strategically translating it in decisions can be challenging. So coaches can help with some techniques and strategies on how to build that analytical and critical thinking. We've talked about, again, emotional intelligence. From that, also creativity and innovation. So sometimes folks, when they are in their box and can't seem to get out of it, coaches can help with strategies around how to be and think more creatively, how to think about solutions in a more innovative way, thinking about automation, thinking about process improvement and operations, if that's your area. Coaches, especially with backgrounds in those areas, including myself, can really help, I think, bring some of that to light and more top of mind. And then lastly, as you're thinking about leaders, they're dealing with people and teams, and being inclusive and making sure that they're building a collaborative environment and not a competitive one will get the most out of your team and that strategic value that both you and you as a leader and your team can deliver. So bringing people together, and again, always aligning those decisions and actions with your values and with the culture of the organization.
Okay. Tina, you talked about delegation, which is probably one of the worst thing that I do. I don't really delegate. We just talked about it earlier about what we do with our own business and what we delegate versus do ourselves. So when thinking about delegation, it's a difficult skill to have. How can a coach make that easier?
Yeah, it's difficult because as a leader, you probably are a leader because you are paid to know. You are paid because you are good at doing that thing. And you raise up through the ranks, especially in corporate America, and you're like, I'm good at this thing. I'm good at this thing. And then ultimately you're surpassing where you should be in doing the thing. And the way you do that is to build scale. And the way you build scale is through delegation. But it's really hard because you might have a feeling of losing control. Some of us like to be in control. Leaders like to be in control.
Type A, anyone?
How can I possibly give the control over to someone else? You may be a perfectionist. That makes losing control even harder when you're like, I just want it done the way I want it done. I can do it really quick. This isn't efficient. I'm the expert here. I know how to do it. You may not trust the people. Like, you just may not trust other people on your team, and then you should look at why. Like, what's underlying that? Time constraints. I'll just get this out real quick. It takes longer for me to tell someone or train someone how to do it, but but I'll just do it. I'll just get it done. Sometimes it's difficult because you can't identify those tasks or understand your talent. in a way where delegation is easy. And if it's difficult, you won't do it. But if you understand the tasks and you understand your teams and what their strengths are and where they need to grow, it can be magic. And lastly, team dynamics. I mean, we're dealing with human beings who may see their team members getting things and getting cool projects and, being empowered to do things, and others aren't. And it can create some interpersonal conflict within your organization. And so being really smart about how you're delegating, which may cause a leader to say, I'm not doing it. It's too hard. It's too emotional. It's too easy for me to just do this, right? So that's why. And I think, coaches can help because they can help you think about your role at the next level and what it is you are saying no to when you don't delegate. Are you saying no to time with your family and work-life balance? Are you saying no to developing your team? Are you saying no to your own ability to advance in your career and create success for yourself? That can be very, very compelling to leaders to give up some of that. I think coaches can also help you explore where this need for control comes from. Coaches are not therapists. They are not. Coaches are not therapists. Therapy and coaching can go hand in hand. But that said, coaches can help you explore your past. They can help you explore your patterns. They can help you understand where this perfectionism comes from and what might be okay to give up in order to get so much more. And finally, one of the main things that I like to explore with my clients is their boundaries and prioritization. Like, what is really important to you, and how is your lack of delegation keeping you from doing the most important, the most critical things in your life, not just at work, but in your whole life? And so coaching can help. I've seen it occur. It's helped me, and I think I've helped others get kind of through that hurdle of delegation and those fears.
I think the delegation is also, in a way, a growth opportunity. So when we don't delegate, we don't see another way of doing it. We have our way, and that's how we do it, versus delegating to someone that may even be more equipped to do it. And you can learn in that process. So if we just kind of keep doing things and staying in our own head, that prevents growth, professional and personal.
That is so well said. That is actually a coachee yesterday told me that. He said, I have younger team members on my team, and I give them a project, and they're like, why are you doing it that way? And wouldn't this be easier? And he's like, absolutely, go for it, right? So if you keep that to yourself, you're not going to get those better approaches.
Yeah. Tina, as we're wrapping up kind of the coaching explanation, all of these things are great, and I feel very fortunate because I get about 30 minutes of coaching session with Tina every time we set up for a podcast, so that's already a win for me. What steps can leaders take to build and maintain trust within the organization? So you said trust is very important. How can they do that?
It's so critical, and it's so easy to lose, isn't it? I mean, it does take time to build trust with individuals, and frankly, some are more naturally trusting than others. You're going to run into some skeptics, but you may run into people who will extend trust first until proven otherwise. But some things you can do, first of all, lead by example. Create that trusting, high integrity culture and persona right away. That can come from transparency. It can come from strong communication. It can come from empathy, but really making sure that you are an example to your organization. Touch on communication, be open, be clear, be consistent, and be reliable. Those are some ways that you can really show up for your team. I touched on it earlier, but empowerment. Empowerment builds trust. If you give, and I think we often underestimate what our team members can do, right? I mean, I don't want to put that upon them. They're already so busy. These may be some thoughts that you're having in your head, but it's very rare that I've seen really strong leaders overextend their team members. Team members want to be pushed. If they have that growth mindset and they want to be successful and they want to grow in their careers, that is exactly what they need. They need you to trust them. They need you to empower them and give them the really, interesting and growth-oriented stretch assignments. So that's another one. Addressing conflict. I have had leaders who have been really not great at addressing conflict within the team. They've either stepped in and solved it for us, which wasn't that helpful in the moment maybe, but not in the long run, or avoided it. It's a super Midwestern trait to avoid conflict. I am not a great example of addressing conflict, but so important as a leader who's trying to build trust is to address that conflict, bring people to the table, approach it with a curiosity, and allow those in conflict to solve it, right, while you're there supporting them. Investment in your team is another way to build trust. Invest in their growth, invest in them with training or opportunities for exposure. That investment goes a really long way to building trust and, frankly, retention, of the workforce. Inclusivity and fairness, right? Who doesn't need that in their life? Like, you want to be a part of something authentically. You want to be treated with equity, and fairness, frankly. And I think when that's lacking, then the trust is lacking. And then I think the last one I'll leave you with, there's a few more, but these are the most important ones I can think of, is asking for feedback. As hard as that is for a leader, right? Leaders are giving feedback all the time, probably. But really asking for it and being open to it and receiving it really well can build a very trusting culture. So if you're doing those things, if you're being consistent and reliable and you're investing and you're listening and you're engaged and you're supporting your team, you will build trust. So that's the bottom line.
Great. To close this, thank you, Tina, for sharing all of this great insight. We call the podcast Success Your Own Way. What is your way? And how do you define success? And what is your way?
Yeah. It has changed over time. It has changed significantly over time. When I was in corporate America, success was very professionally based. Even with a young family, I was still very motivated to climb the ladder and get the big, roles and be recognized, win awards. I mean, that was success to me. And looking back, there's a big part of myself that was missing during those times, and it had to do with my connection with people at work, but most importantly, my family, my husband, my 2 kids, my extended family. I wasn't present and I wasn't engaged. And so over the last 2 years, building this coaching business and having more flexibility in my life has become my definition of success. And so being, really fiercely guarded of my time and deciding how I want to spend it makes me feel successfl.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tina. We're going to hear a lot more as we're bringing more guests and interviewing them. This is also a growth opportunity for us. So we're very excited.
Yeah, thank you, Yifat, for having me and for giving me the floor today. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much for listening, giving us the time. We hope that we've inspired you a little bit. And Tina, where can people find you?
They can go to mcgintycoaching.com, and would love to hear from you. Set up some time to chat.
If you have any questions for Tina, go ahead, send us a message, and we'll be able to answer.
Yeah.
We're happy to answer.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much, Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Success Your Own Way. We hope you found this episode inspiring and took away actionable insights. Please tune in for our next episode. And if you know someone who is rethinking what success looks like in their life, please share this episode with them.